mobility, command and control, and logistics. In Vietnam, the first air cav has found itself conducting 5 essentially different but related types of operations. The first type is interdiction. Interdiction operations are conducted along the Cambodian border and in other areas where constant reconnaissance is necessary to seek out the routes that are being used to infiltrate communist forces and materiel into and throughout South Vietnam. Interdiction is usually carried out by the division's air cavalry squadron, which is particularly well suited for this type of operation. Normally, all 3 elements of an aerial troop, the red, white, and blue teams, would be involved. A typical mission would begin as the scout helicopters of a cavalry troop depart from a special forces or Arben camp, where the white teams work in pairs at different altitudes. This provides 2 perspectives as they scan the terrain for any sign of enemy forces, with special emphasis on roads, trails, and stream beds. Each scout helicopter has a door gunner observer for recon by fire. And gunships, or the red teams, normally fly cover. The squadron may also send in a section of its wheeled troop for a combined ground-air reconnaissance. This technique has proved particularly effective in areas where jungle... Once a hostile force is located, the gunships of the aerial troop move in for low-altitude strafing attacks. At the same time, a 3rd element of the cavalry troop, a regular rifle platoon or blue team, is immediately committed to find and fix the enemy. The gunships of the cavalry troop are backed up by the heavy situation demands it. Airstrikes are also directed against the enemy positions. The overall purpose of interdiction is to disrupt newly arrived enemy forces before they have a chance to organize and attack. But another important benefit of interdiction operations is that they provide continuous, up-to-date information on the terrain and enemy and friendly forces. Since the war in Vietnam is such that you return time and again to fight in the same area, this information proved extremely valuable in planning future operations. If an enemy force located during an interdiction mission leading to a second type of operation known as search and destroy. In first and one of the most important steps is the planning phase. At division headquarters, the commander and his staff are continuously kept abreast of the situation. Through detailed SOPs, the division is geared to react quickly, greatly reducing the amount of planning required in the field once an enemy force is located. Now the planning is concentrated upon the fine points of this particular situation. Landing zones are selected and plans made for securing them. Instructions for all elements of the operations, to include movement of artillery, preparation fires on LZs, and close air support, are spelled out. Flight routes for the troop carriers and direction of approach to the LZ are planned. Each subordinate unit is told which area of the LZ it is to secure, how far and in which direction it is to advance. Plans should be made now to preserve small unit integrity during troop load-up and movement. Ideally, each company should hit the LZ intact at the same time. To be effective, plans must be carried out quickly without any undue lapse of time that might invalidate them. A small infantry protecting force, usually 1 company per artillery battalion, secures the howitzer positions and remains with the artillery throughout the operation. This is especially important in Vietnam, where one of the enemy's favorite tactics is to close at almost arm's length in an attempt to escape the overwhelming firepower of the United States. The third stage of a search and destroy operation is troop load-up and movement. Here are a few of the lessons learned and techniques used by the first cab during this phase. First, each small unit leader must be told in advance which helicopters his men are to board. Identification is by colored symbols on the fuselage and numbers on the windshield. The use of pathfinders, however, greatly facilitates load-up during extractions as well as initial assaults. Second, travel light. This is one of the most difficult lessons for newcomers. You must learn to rely upon the helicopter for resupply. Weapons, ammo, 2 canteens of water, and perhaps 1 ration. Once he leaves the objective LZ, that is en route to the LZ, the slicks are escorted by gunships. The flight path is either at treetop level to minimize exposure time to ground fire, or at about 1,500 feet, beyond the effective range of enemy small arms fire. Final approach to the LZ, however, is always at treetop level. While the infantry assault force is en route, the supporting fires begin their preparation of the LZ. This usually begins about 30 minutes before the slicks touch down. The preparation begins with a pre-strike by the Air Force. And is joined by TOTs from the supporting howitzer batteries. The airstrikes are directed by a forward air controller, who usually marks targets with a smoke rocket from a bird dog or other light observation aircraft. The FAC is in constant communication with the command group, which controls all aspects of the mission, usually while orbiting the area at about 1,500 feet, and can move his airstrikes as needed. The first team has Air Force liaison officers at division and brigade headquarters, plus an FAC team attached directly to each infantry battalion and the Air Cavalry Squadron. The Air Force personnel trained, deployed, and lived with the Army units. This worked out extremely well, providing excellent and immediate air support. Often several LZs are softened up simultaneously. This serves to deceive the enemy as to the real LZ and also preps others should an alternate become necessary. Meanwhile, gunships from the ARA battalion marry up with the troop carriers, but break away before reaching the LZ to precede the first slicks by about 1.5 minutes. There must be no let-up until howitzer batteries shift their fires about 300 meters outside the LZ, and the Air Force continues its support to the flanks and against close-in suspected targets. Then the infantryman, touchdown at the LZ. He must be ready to fight the moment he hits the ground. Each man must know exactly what he is to do, and do it automatically. If there's been a change of LZ or direction of approach, the pilot will have told everyone. During the final approach, the escort gunships break away from the troop column and strafe the flanks of the LZ about 30 seconds before the first slicks arrive. As the troop carriers touch down, this is the moment when both man and machine are most vulnerable to enemy fire. You must get off the LZ on the double. This will not only minimize the chance of your being hit, but also makes room for the next serial of slicks, which follows by about 30 seconds. It requires about 60 Hueys to move an infantry battalion, and the LZ should ideally be large enough to handle 10 or 12 slicks in each serial. The first serial of troops secures only the immediate LZ. Succeeding waves move through them to enlarge the perimeter. Organic supporting weapons are brought in and set up in pre-designated positions as soon as possible to bolster all-around security. Another point on selecting landing zones. Take the high ground has been a basic axiom of battle tactics for centuries. It still applies, but with a new twist. Air mobile units can begin their attack from the high ground rather than fighting to gain it. This has 2 primary advantages. First, the enemy's defenses are uniformly oriented toward the ground below, and landing above him means landing behind him. Second, movement downhill is faster and less fatiguing for friendly forces. As the infantry moves out in search of the enemy, the most difficult and dangerous stage of a search and destroy mission begins. But it is also the payoff, the ultimate purpose of all the preparation that has gone before. In Vietnam, it is often impossible to distinguish between friend and foe. To avoid harming non-combatants without taking an inordinate risk calls for a nicety of judgment and a discipline never before demanded of our forces. As the infantry continues to advance, supporting fires are readily available if resistance is encountered. In addition to field artillery, the ARA gunships and Air Force fighter bombers remain on station if needed. The purpose of a search and destroy operation is not to seize territory and hold it permanently, but to locate the enemy and to eliminate him as an effective fighting force, to capture him, to kill him, or to drive him out of the area, to capture or destroy his weapons and equipment, to destroy or disrupt his sources of supply, and to eliminate his terrorist influence upon the peaceful civilian population. Often civilians are temporarily resettled to prevent their forced collaboration with the Viet Cong. A search and destroy mission disrupts the enemy's plans and disorganizes his forces. It drives him underground and keeps us on the move. It doesn't give the enemy time to get set for the minutely planned, painstakingly rehearsed attack that he favors. Also, captured weapons and equipment, as well as prisoners and captured documents, are important sources of information as to enemy strength, location, movements, and plans. They may provide the intelligence for even more successful search and destroy missions in the future. Although a large-scale search and destroy operation conducted by division or a brigade may continue for several weeks, the limits of individual endurance and morale are recognized. As a rule, small units are not kept in constant contact or pursuit of the enemy for extended periods. They are rotated to a secure forward base to serve as the reaction force. This provides an opportunity for rest, sanitation, and changes of uniform. If a regular bath point is not available during prolonged online engagements, expedient means for keeping clean can usually be found. In Vietnam, where the combination of temperature, humidity, insects, and disease may produce more casualties than the Viet Cong, sanitation is particularly important. A search and destroy mission ends with the extraction of units, which can also be a pretty hairy maneuver. More often than not, an LZ will have to be cleared for the helicopter. A favorite tactic of the enemy during extraction is to close in around your ever-diminishing perimeter in an attempt to zap the last unit. A few points to remember. 1. Keep your security out. 2. Hold your automatic weapons for the last lift to provide the greatest possible firepower until the last moment. 3. Keep a forward observer until the final lift to call for artillery fire. 4. Gunships should remain on station until the last man is extracted. 5. When you do move out, move out. Speed is just as essential in an extraction as during the initial assault. The same basic precautions for extractions apply when retrieving a helicopter that has been grounded. Normally, a small force is lifted in to secure the area and prevent capture of the helicopter by the enemy. Occasionally, this force must hold fast overnight, or perhaps longer, before retrieval can. Vietnamese forces are available. It may lead to another type of operation that is. This is the third type of operation conducted by the 1st Cav, and it is known as clear and hold. In many ways, clear and hold is similar to search and destroy. But now, the objective is to hold or control a given area, to return the land and its potential to the South Vietnamese people, and to reestablish control by the South Vietnamese government. To do that, you must not only remove the Viet Cong and their influence from the civilian population, you must keep it away permanently. This can be partly accomplished by ferreting out the main force VC and destroying his bases and sources of supply. Equally important, however, is the psychological aspect of the operation. In order to win the loyalty and cooperation of the civilian populace, you must convince both them and the VC that you are there to stay. You must demonstrate that both United States and South Vietnamese forces are able and willing to protect the loyal citizens. Units of the 1st Cav often return to areas that have been previously cleared for a show of force and to prevent reprisals by the VC against local leaders. In this respect, however, one important point should be made. A clear and hold operation always involves and must be fully coordinated with military forces and officials of the South Vietnamese government. Clear and hold is in all respects solely a military operation designed to wrest control from the VC. A fourth type of operation in which the 1st Cav found itself greatly involved was support to other units, both United States and Allied. This support took many shapes and forms. Often it meant providing fire support for many units on all types of missions. It sometimes meant giving assistance to the 101st Airborne in the protection of rice harvests. But nearly always, support to... In many instances, support to other units began the moment Allied forces arrived in South Vietnam. Members of the 1st team helped provide initial security for the arrival in country of the 25th Infantry Division, the 4th Infantry Division, and units from the Republic of Korea. This activity consisted of clearing and securing roadways and providing escorts for the newly committed units from their point of arrival to their base camp area. Clearing and securing roads and highways was indeed the final type of operation conducted by the 1st Cav. When roads are opened, it is primarily for daytime use, but the 1st Cav has operated sizable convoys at night between Quy Nhon, An Khê, and Bang Son. In opening a section of roadway, mutually supporting howitzer batteries are positioned to command passes and other critical areas. Gunships fly cover for convoys and scout ahead of them to search for enemy forces. Also, rapid reaction units are kept on standby for immediate deployment to any scene of ambush. These combined techniques have, for the most part, eliminated ambushes of sizable units. Today, the mining of highways and attacks upon solitary vehicles are the VC's primary tactics against Allied transportation in the 1st Cav area. The 1st Cav is less dependent on roads than other divisions, but keeping the highways open has definite military advantages. It facilitates the resupply of base camps and forward areas. It aids other United States and Allied units, and it denies use of the highways to the enemy. Of equal importance is the impact of secure highways on the civilian population. Freedom from terrorist attack will improve civilian transportation, help to physically reunite the country, and aid the South Vietnamese economy. It is therefore an important part of the overall revolutionary development effort. In this program, the 1st Cav gives assistance and advice to the civilian population and to government agencies in resettling and rebuilding this area of the nation. Assistance may take such obvious and relatively easy forms as providing employment for South Vietnamese civilians. This aids the Vietnamese economy and also frees United States troops for more critical jobs. Of greater significance is the work done in helping the Vietnamese to improve their own standard of living. 1st Cav volunteers help train specialists in many fields such as agriculture and introduce better strains of vegetables and livestock. In other civic action projects, First Cav volunteers help the Vietnamese, both children and adults, with their education. And always, inevitably, sick calls. It has been said that the best example of psychological warfare is a United States Army medic treating a small child in a remote village in Southeast Asia. Certainly there is no event more welcomed by young and old alike than a visit by an Army medical team. The 1st Cav began using this humanitarian approach soon after its arrival in Vietnam and regularly includes medical aid to civilians as a part of all its operations. But the first team has gone further than that. It helped to build and maintain a modern dispensary near the base camp at An Khe, where the more seriously ill are cared for under clean, clinical conditions. This also provides an opportunity for Vietnamese medical specialists to improve their professional skills. The objective then of revolutionary development, or a clear and hold operation, which really go hand in hand, is to help the Vietnamese to help themselves, to give them pride and confidence in themselves and their government. The first team supports this objective in many ways, such as sponsoring civilian military festivals like Operation Good Friend. And revolutionary development is the ultimate objective of all 5 types of operations conducted by the 1st Cav. Of interdiction, search and destroy, clear and hold, support to other units, security. Before it had been in existence a full year, the 1st Air Cavalry Division had already firmly established itself both in the annals of military history and as one of the most effective fighting units in Vietnam. Shortly before leaving the 1st Cav for another assignment, General Kennard, who had commanded the division since the test years of the 11th Air Assault, discussed the effectiveness of air mobility in combat.
In this combat, in which we've engaged since last September, we found to our great satisfaction that the techniques, the tactics, the equipment that was developed during the 11th Air Assault days and since then has proven itself extremely well in actual combat with the real enemy. We've fought the Viet Cong guerrillas, we fought the main force VC, and we have fought full regiments and in fact full divisions of the North Vietnamese Army. This has been the combat test of the 1st Air Cavalry Division. We have found that uniformly we are able to fight these people not on their terms but on our terms because of our increased mobility, and that we are able to overcome them.
Since General Kennard's departure, the 1st Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, has been led in combat by 2 additional commanders. Major General John Norton assumed command in May of 1966 and relinquished command in April of 1967 to Major General John J. Tolson III. Since its arrival in Vietnam, the 1st Cav has also received thousands of replacements through rotation and, with little additional training, has successfully integrated them into elite air mobile units. Vietnam has also demonstrated that the 1st Cav is not a special division limited to a specific mission. Combined operations with other types of divisions have proved the 1st Cav's flexibility and its ability to operate throughout the extremes of warfare and terrain in Vietnam. One symbol of the dedication, esprit de corps, and the responsibility shouldered by the 1st team in Vietnam is the number of awards its members have earned for bravery and heroism. During its first 2 years in combat, Air Cavalrymen received 28 Distinguished Service Crosses, more than 400 Silver Stars, 7,000 Bronze Stars, more than 45,000 Air Medals, and the Medal of Honor was awarded to Lieutenant Walter J. Marm, Jr. in December of 1966. Since then, Sergeants James Stewart and David Dolby have also received the country's highest military award. The success of a division or the validity of a concept can no more be judged by the honors and achievements of a few individuals than can the individual soldier judge the success or failure of a specific operation solely by the number of his comrades fallen in battle. The validity of the air mobile concept can, however, be indicated by the many operations successfully completed by the first team. Operation Lincoln, Happy Valley, Asher White Wing, Bang Song. The combat test of the 1st Air Cav also has a greater significance than the success of its own individual battles. As the mobility of the 1st Cav increases, so does that of the entire Army. As other units adapt the equipment, tactics, and techniques developed and pioneered by the Air Cav. The experience, the know-how, the lessons learned by the 1st Team in Vietnam will be of major importance in shaping the future of Army-wide mobility, upon which success in combat depends today as never before in history. In recognition of the division's performance during the Play Me Ia Dran campaign, in the fall of 1965, a Presidential Unit Citation for extraordinary heroism was awarded to the 1st Cavalry Division on September 15, 1967. In a ceremony at the White House, President Johnson paid tribute to the men of the 1st Team for their valor and outstanding performance of duty in completely defeating a numerically superior enemy, including regular units of the Army of North Vietnam. This was only the 5th time in our military history that a full division and attached units has received a presidential citation. But perhaps the best evaluation of the role of air mobility in Vietnam was made by President Johnson. The 1st Cavalry, he said, in awarding the unit citation, has proved that the enemy can never win in Vietnam.